I decided to follow me Kevin's advice. And no, I'm not talking about the advice that he gives on stocks. I'm talking about the old school me Kevin when all he talked about was real estate.
Live there for a year, I don't care if you have mortgage insurance, and after a year, you're going to do it again.
It might take you longer than a year. Maybe you're only gonna buy a place every 2 years. But my gosh, if you start at 20, you buy a place every 2 or even 3 years, you know how far ahead you're gonna be when you're 40?
I decided to follow that advice. And what that meant to me was that I had to move out of my primary residence, rent that out, and move into a fixer-upper so that I can eventually rent it out as well. And that to us was really scary because we didn't have that much money to begin with or that much experience with this at all. But because I really wanted to grow my rental portfolio, I saw Kevin's advice as really the only way to go ahead and get started. So since last September, it's actually been a full year that I've owned that property as a rental. And today I want to give you an update on how it's been being a landlord for me, how the house has held up, and how much money I've made in that full year that I started renting it out up until September of last year, because that would have been a full year. So let's just go ahead and get started with what everybody wants to know. How much money did I make from the property in 1 year? All right, well, in order to do this, we're actually gonna have to break it down a little bit because there's a few ways to make money with real estate. One of them is through cash flow, the other is through principal paydown, and then the other is through appreciation. So let's just talk about those three things and then we'll add it all up to see how much money I actually made in that year. Rental cash flow for that full year was about $1,260. And yeah, $1,260 for the full year that I made in rental cash flow is not a lot, right? Like if you break it down month by month, I'm actually only making $105 in rental cash flow. But to tell you the truth, I'm actually completely okay with that because this was a property that helped me get started in real estate. I wasn't really looking to get the best deal, and so all that I'm really happy about with this property is the fact that my mortgage payment is significantly less than what I decided to rent it out for.
What's your monthly payment, and what can you rent the property out for? If that number is positive, considering management fees and vacancy and fix-up in between tenants, then you're good.
So now that we've got our yearly cash flow figure, let's move on to our principal paydown. And what does principal paydown even mean? Well, it means that each month that the tenant is paying rent, he's also paying my mortgage and he's paying a part of my principal down every month. So in the full year of when I first got it rented out, September of 2020 to September of 2021, my tenant paid off $1,812 worth of principal on my mortgage. That's $1,800 that my tenant paid off on my loan that now I get to keep as equity between the balance of the loan and how much the property is worth. And talking about how much the property is worth, let's talk about appreciation. Because in that year of September 2020 to September 2021, my house appreciated about $6,000. I'd love to see any individual stock do that. And that's why I love real estate, because if you invest properly, these properties are gonna go up in value steadily and you won't really see a lot of volatility like you do with individual stocks, especially in the stock market. Now, when you add all those three figures together, I get about $9,072. That's not bad for my first property. I remember when I first decided that I was gonna rent it out, I was just gonna be happy if they were able to cover my mortgage, the expenses, and the vacancy. But for me to actually be making money and be positive on that first property that I hadn't even bought as an actual investment is just a big testimony to me that real estate is where it's at, man. All right, so there you all have it, you chismosos. It's about $9,072 in total that I made from that property in that 1 year. Now, let's go ahead and talk about maintenance, because a lot of people right now are probably watching and thinking, okay, yeah, that's great. You're making money. You're talking about all of the positives. But I know that there's a ton of negatives out there when you own real estate. Now, why don't you talk about those? Well, to be honest, on the maintenance side is where you can see a lot of that negative stuff happen, but it's actually been quite uneventful on the maintenance part. I'll go ahead and share that with you now. So the only things that we've had to fix up on that property have been the garbage disposal and 2 outlets that were not working. That's about it. I spent about $175 getting that fixed, and I've had no other issues with the property. Now, my property was actually built in the 80s, and it's actually held up really well. I know a lot of first-time homebuyers and beginner investors can get really hung up on how old the property is. But in my opinion, as long as you buy 80s or newer, I think you're gonna be completely fine. And that's how it's been that full year and up until now. I really haven't had that much issues, And I hope that this 1-year update on my first property can really help you see how most of the time, nothing bad's really gonna happen. You do hear a lot of bad stories from past investors who used to own real estate, who think it's the worst idea, who have had really bad experiences with owning real estate. But I think most of the time, you're gonna be okay. As long as you do your due diligence, you invest properly, and then you make sure you vet whoever's gonna rent out your property, you're gonna be smooth sailing, man. It's really gonna be worth the investment, in my opinion. And now, we don't just have that one property, we've got 2 more aside from that one. So now in total, we have 3. It truly is amazing, and I got the bug hard for real estate. And that's why I'm making these videos. It's to show full transparency of what it's like to be a landlord and to be investing in real estate from the beginning, and also to document everything that's going on. Because eventually we're gonna look back and see how cool it was to have worked so hard for everything that we're eventually gonna have. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one.